Hello and welcome to another Boost Knowledge video. From this video we will be starting a new series called Humanities, where we will teach you all about geography, history and religious studies and boost your knowledge, as our channel says. This lesson is about history and we're going to talk about the Romans in Britain. But it is a long time, so we are going to split it into parts. The first part is Julius Caesar's invasions in Britain, and of course his failed attempts. The timeline is from 55 BC to 41 AD. Before we talk about what happened in these events and these battles, we have to talk about Rome and Britain at that time. Towards the end of the Iron Age, Rome and Britain became two rivaling countries. Many battles were fought between them. However, the Romans clearly had the advantage in the invasion because they were more civilized. At that time, Rome was ruled by a dictator or emperor. It had a government which represented the people in important votes and decisions. The Roman government, of course, collected taxes, which helped build a strong army and conquered many lands in the Mediterranean and stretching as far as Iraq, Afghanistan, Africa, and later England. The Romans gathered in organized cities where people of different levels and positions gathered together to live. The cities then were kind of like little cities now, although there weren't any metro stations, train stations, or anything like phone shops, because these things weren't invented at the time, but there were necessary items like small shops, houses, etc. Britain. People in Britain who ruled at that time were called Celts. They lived in tribes which was ruled by a chief. However, there was no government and no taxes to be paid. They lived in little settlements called hill forts, where they lived in straw-built houses and gathered in places like Stonehenge, where people had feasts. But while this may not seem worse than Rome, the little hill forts were nothing compared to the cities, who were very organized. The little hill forts were built with really very cheap and ugly material like straw and wood. Also, Stonehenge, where people gathered together and had feasts, was only built with a few stones. The first invasion. The Romans wanted to conquer many lands because at that time they had their own empire, the Roman Empire. Since in 55 BC, Roman Emperor Julius Caesar decided to invade Britain. They took their huge armies with massive ships and sailed to the British Channel. However, when they arrived at Britain, it wasn't such a success. When they arrived, they got overwhelmed by the cold weather and the monstrous tides in the British Channel. The soldiers got sick and very uncomfortable. Caesar's ships was also heavy and big. There weren't any places to anchor the ships. Thus, the soldiers were forced to jump in the freezing sea and swim to England in full armor. That would be a very cold and uncomfortable experience. The soldiers, of course, they fought very well against the Britons and they won some battles, were quite dazzled when they arrived at the shore. As I said before, Caesar did win many battles and of course took lots of hostages. He conquered some land. However, things did not go completely as planned. As summer changed into fall and winter, the soldiers were getting sick because of freezing temperatures. Thus, Caesar was forced to retreat back to Gaul in France. They then returned the next year. Trades and invasions. The next year, Caesar returned and fought and won many battles. The Roman army then returned to go to stay there for the winters. At that time, Roman traders often came to Britain to sell goods. Romans and Britain both used coins. They bought and sold and bought goods, from meat to wine to jewelry to glass. They also bought and sold slaves and hostages. At that time, surprisingly, slaves were completely different to servants. Slaves was not treated as normal people. They were like toys or like cleaners or something. They could not own property nor make their own choices. They had to be listen or to be loyal to their master. Slaves at that time could not get any money. They had to follow their master until one day they was freed, became an ex-slave, or died or killed by his master. They would be like little robots at this time. Servants did get money, and although they served the master, they still had their own choices to make. The Romans did won many battles because they had better battle techniques against the Celts. They advanced steadily, while the Celts would attack and move away. Thus, they made lots of progress. The Romans were better equipped, with the rows in each troop determined and weapons distributed, but the Celts' weapons were very old and not really evenly distributed. They weren't even rows either, they just fought to their death. The Romans had armor, well crafted from metal and other materials, while the Celts shielded themselves with only bare hands and shields, which were not that good. But why was Britain never conquered at that time? Why was Britain never conquered at that time? Well, although the Celts did not stand a chance against the Romans, Britain was still not part of the Roman Empire until 43 AD. Why? Mainly because the Celts were not easy to control. Rebellions, even after Britain was conquered into the Roman Empire, were still very common. Also, the Romans had other many trouble in their empires. Rebellions in France and Egypt happened nearly every day. Thus, without full control of other parts of their empire, Britain could not be fought with enough soldiers from the Roman Empire. Also, mentioned before, Britain's weather was extremely uncomfortable for some Romans. They often got sick staying in Britain for long. Emperors after Caesar, Augustus, Tiberius, and Gaius Caligula never wanted to invade Britain because they were dealing with something else, such as rebellions, trading with other countries, or boosting their economy. They may also want Britain to get Romans' influence. This way, which happened, Britain would be more Roman, and the Roman army could swoop in and invade Britain and take over the country and influence it more easier. So, Britain was left alone for these 5 reasons from 50 BC to 40 AD, until Emperor Claudius got the throne. This is the end of Lesson 1 in history. So what would happen after Emperor Claudius got the throne? Will he invade Britain? Will he succeed? Will he get land? These answers are all in the next lesson. This is all about Julius Caesar's invasions and interactions in Britain. I hope you enjoy this video. Thank you for listening.